I ever told you about my bad acid trip?
No.
Well, I had a bad acid trip once, and it started in the 90s. I hung out with a bunch of hippies, and we did a lot of drugs. And we used to hang out at this apartment in Garden City. It was a 2-bedroom apartment, but there was at least 7 to 8 people that lived there at all times. And this one particular night, there was 7 to 8 people that lived there, but there was 20 to 30 people hanging out there at all times. And this one particular night, there was quite a few of us there, and we decided that we wanted to take acid. We wanted to trip. This was back before cell phones were a very common thing. So there was a line of us taking turns calling our contacts on the phone.
On a rotary? Was it actually
No.
Like, son of a bitch! Gonna get that acid eventually.
Sorry, wrong. But no, we all took our turns, and everybody struck out. Nobody could find shit. And a number of the people started calling it a night. And we're done. And as everybody left, I believe there was about 5 of us left. 2 of the people lived there. 3 of the people lived there. The one person was one of the girls' boyfriends, who was a friend of mine, and myself. And I remember at that point, as everything started to die down, I picked up a Metro Times, and I read my horoscope. And my horoscope was fucked up. My horoscope said that I'd be faced with a great evil within the next 7 days. And when I looked back at the front cover, it had been about 7 days since that issue came out. And I normally don't believe in such things, but then, as it turned out, shortly after I read that, these 3 girls walked in the door of the apartment. And it wasn't strange for people to just walk in the apartment without knocking. It was actually very common, but what was strange is that I hung out there a lot, and I didn't recognize these people. Never seen any of them before. It was normal for somebody to walk in that I recognized with 3 people that I didn't recognize, but it was very odd for there to be 3 people I just didn't know at all walking in the door. Well, it was very obvious immediately that one of the people that lived there was familiar with them. He walked up to them, greeted them happily, gave them hugs, and as if some sort of magic, the one girl, blonde with short blonde hair, pulled an envelope out of her purse and said, "Who wants to do some acid?"
Fuck yeah.
So of course, we'd been looking for acid for about 2 hours, so fuck yeah. Take some acid. I offer her some money. No. It turns out these 3 girls are from Ohio. And the guy who lived there had met them on a road trip. So basically, he barely knew them. Had no idea that they were coming that particular weekend. Had just given them his address and said, "Come by sometime."
Huh.
So they show up, envelope full of acid. I mean full, like bulging. So
like blotter paper?
Yeah.
Nice.
And as I'm putting it on my tongue, the one girl goes, "Just be careful, it's got a lot of speed in it." Okay. I've never done speed, but alright, thanks for the warning as I'm putting it on my tongue. I get it. And then, so we called a bunch of people up that had previously left and say, "Hey, it's all good, come back over." A bunch more people show up. We're all partying, we're all having a good time. And at some point, the girl pulls out the envelope. "Who wants to do more?" I'm tripping hard at this point. But everybody else is down, and I'm young, and I'm got no responsibilities, so I say, what the hell? I do another hit. And that's when things started to go downhill. Just was a little too high for my own good. But then something that under normal circumstances I would have felt that was a pretty good experience started to happen, but given my present state of mind and my preoccupation for paranoia, bad things happened. So I'm sitting in this walk-in closet that one of the residents of the apartment building, or the apartment itself, had turned into his little art room. He had an art table. The walls were decorated in prints by his favorite artists, and this was his little getaway from the rest of the apartment. Had a small futon in there, and I'm sitting on this futon with two of these three girls from Ohio. Just me and these two girls. I'm single.
Yeah, all right.
Hanging out with these two chicks. And they both start putting the moves on me. They're both rubbing my thigh, rubbing my chest. Thinking, yeah, this is what dreams are made of. Girls from a different state come over with an envelope full of drugs, do them with you, and then start rubbing you up.
Fuck you, Metro Time. How about that?
Well, exactly, because right then, something clicked in my mind, and I grew up Catholic, so I'm not Catholic anymore, but every once in a while, especially in my younger days, these feelings of Catholic guilt still came up a lot. And something snapped in my head and said, this great evil that the Metro Times had warned me about was happening right now. These two girls, they wanted to have sex with me. So it was evil. And then I started hallucinating. I started seeing devil horns coming out of these girls' heads and all this crazy evil shit happening. And so I just shut down. I just started nothing. They would pass the weed to me, and I just sit there silent, wouldn't even look at them because my head was going. You make eye contact with them, you know, they can manipulate your thoughts.
Bummer.
So at some point, these girls start freaking out, and they walk into the living room and say, hey, I think something's wrong with your friend. And I hear lots of, oh, that's just Brooks. That's just, they're like, no, I really think there's something wrong with him. So a group of my friends come in, very concerned, and the one girl that lived there, she gets down on her knee, she makes eye contact with me, because I'm staring at the floor, and she makes sure she makes eye contact with me, and she goes, Brooks, if you're having a good time in there, just let us know. And I wasn't having a good time. No good times are being had whatsoever. But I laughed my ass off. Everyone threw their hands up and goes, see, told you that's just Brooks. That's what he does. And they all retreated to the living room. And these girls were like, oh, well, we whatever was going on with him, we broke that, and we're just gonna continue down this road that we were going down. And they start hitting on me again, and I immediately start staring at the floor again. And it's every guy's dream, right? So it's these girls from another state that you're never gonna have to see again come up, you know, lots of drugs, just want to make out with you, and no. And then at some point, they obviously gave up, also retreated to the living room. I don't know what happened in the living room, because I spent the rest of the night in there convinced that Satan was in the living room, and sat there until my legs were completely numb, at which point I tried to stand up and I fell over. Finally went into the living room. These girls were in there, still felt very uncomfortable. The girls left at some point. They came back in about 10 minutes later and said, no way, it's snowing way too hard for us to drive home. We just can't do it. And as soon as they came back in, I ran outside, didn't even grab my coat or anything, middle of winter, snowing, ran down Ford Road to the grocery store and used a payphone to call a friend of mine on a Sunday morning at 6 o'clock in the morning. Come pick me up, I'm freaking out, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, okay, man. All right, I'll be there. Just come and get me. All right, I'm on my way. He comes and picks me up. I tell him the story, and he fucking slapped me. What's wrong with you, man? So that's the story of my bad acid trip.
It's a bummer. Fuck.